So I'm going to start the recording and I'm going to do my greeting and I'm going to do a disclaimer. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you all for coming tonight. We are so glad you're here. Welcome to the movement. We're a motivational organization here to educate minds, empower, nurture, and transform. We are a movement to move. And we're so glad you came. You could have gone anywhere else. You could have been home watching your television. Some of you are eating dinner while you're here. And most of you have your cameras off. I wish you had them on. But, you know, y'all so shy about showing the faces. So we're just going to take what we get. But we're glad you're here. And we thank you for joining us tonight for this discussion. It is very intense. I'm going to, if Annette is still with me, I can't tell because her picture's up. I'm going to give her a chance to greet you. Annette?
Hello. It's kind of because I can see my picture. Is it still up? Can I just see myself?
Your picture's up.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, anyway. Well, hello, everybody. Again, having technical difficulties, but I have nothing to do with what we got. We got to keep moving regardless of what you do. That's life. We much tonight and pray to be said to guide you, to build you up, to give you what you need to get the next level. We're excited as always, and again, thank you.
And that we can't understand anything you say, so while we're working, please try to connect on your computer if you can. We really can't hear you. Your voice is going in and out through the phone. So just letting you all know, we had so many technical difficulties tonight. I was just talking before we actually started recording that this topic, I believe, really took us into a place of warfare. I'm telling you, it's been something. It's been an interesting ride with this. It put a lot of people in a trance because I know that some people, when you hear the statement, why I struggle with going to church, sometimes this statement will have you going, I wonder what that's about. Or some people might be like, well, is she questioning the church? And others might say, well, you know, that's me. I struggle because ... So before I move any further, let me say this conversation is by no means trying to tell anyone what to do, how to live, how to have your faith, how to worship. We're just simply having a conversation. We're not, we're not pastors. We're not psychologists. We're lifeologists. We've lived and we've experienced some of the very things, a lot of the very things that we're going to discuss tonight. Most of the things, because I myself, I was raised in church, and I know a lot of you, raised in church. We are an organization veered by Christian women. So we are Christians, but we deal with a lot of practical things and a lot of business things as well. So we just want to have this discussion because we've gotten a lot of people that have, expressed this to us. We had a lot of concern, a lot of people coming forward saying, you know what, that's me. I deal with that very thing. I have the same problem. It's a lot of times my life is like, life is so turned upside down. I don't know what to do. It's like, what do I do? So that's where we're going tonight. I'm going to start our presentation. But I want to tell you, this thing, when I first started dealing with this topic, I dealt with this, we had this topic a long time ago. We actually came up with this topic like a year ago. And not a year ago, probably sometime last year, towards the middle of the end of the year, we started coming up with topics for 2019 based on conversations that we have with people. Because people tell you all the time, like, hey, I struggle with this, I struggle with that. And we were asking a lot of our followers to post topics in our Facebook group because we want to talk about things that you guys want to talk about. And we kind of fish around and search around and deal with people and ask questions. And this particular subject, it kept coming up. It kept coming up. There are so many people who, loving God has nothing to do with actually dealing with and going to church and dealing with church folk and church situations. I want to get that out there. A lot of times we just struggle because of what we're having to face. I actually, in opening up this topic, it caused me to go into some places. I'm telling you, it caused me to go into some places that I did not expect. It caused me to answer some questions to myself that I really honestly had not even thought about, had not dealt with. And I'm like, wow, it really took me there. I really couldn't believe
Yeah.
it. I was like, wow, oh, you're back. You got everything fixed?
Yeah, I still, for whatever reason, you probably gonna see my picture the rest of the night because I'm on the phone.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm on here, so.
Oh, okay, because I just heard you like chime in, but you're like, yeah, that's good. So
Yeah. Did you hear me okay? You
it
hear me
goes in
okay?
and out. It goes in and out. We're just going to keep going, and hopefully we don't have the issue.
Yeah,
Hopefully when it's
I
time
keep dropping.
for you to present, it won't go, because that's the problem that we're having on this end. But we're just going to keep going. I'm going to go ahead and open up the presentation here.
Okay.
Interesting topic. Interesting topic. So, a lot of us grew up right here, but yet and still, a lot of us have the struggle. And when we're talking about this topic, it takes you to a place that sometimes I say you don't want to go. Now I searched a study by the Barna Research Group from 2018, and what they said that was that 59% of young people identify as Christian or Catholic, but that's down from 75% for elders. 21% say that they're atheists or agnostic, which is up 11%. 14% say they have no religious affiliation, which is up from 9%. So when we look at this, it's like you have to ask the question, what is it that's blocking the Christian faith? Because I would say 23% of the people from the study said Christians are hypocrites. 12% of the people say, I used to go to church, but it's not important or relevant to my realities anymore. And 6% of the people said, I had a bad experience at church with Christians. And when we look at this study, it makes you like, man, it makes you think because, I myself, I'm telling you, I was born and raised in church, and I worked in church and lived in church, eat, sleep, breathe church. And a lot of you can identify. I know a lot of you can identify with me because you're cut from the same cloth. I feel a lot of us are cut from the same cloth. We have our affiliations. You serve in ministry, you sing in the choir, you do whatever. So if you are affiliated with a local ecclesia, type in yes. Just type in yes. If you actually are a member of a church, I want you to type in yes. I want to see who we're talking to tonight. Yes. And now, if you have a particular area that you serve in, or a job, or if you're a pastor or whatever, type in what you actually do at your local church. If you're in the choir, if you're an usher, if you're an associate minister, if you're with a women's ministry, whatever it is that you're over, that you do, if you serve as a greeter, whatever it is, choir, you better sing, Marilyn. So now, look at this. Almost everybody here does something. And I can tell you I feel you, Stacy. I'm a member, but I don't attend. Registered associate minister and teacher stewardship ministry. I can tell you from experience, one of the hardest things for me to do sometimes, and this is coming from a person who I did so much stuff at the church, it was like you would think that I lived there overnight and never went home to go to sleep. I had so many titles and so many responsibilities that I look back and I don't know how I did it. Like, how did I do that? And one of the things I had to come to the conclusion was that there was a lot of days that I actually struggled with getting up and putting on clothes to go. Have you struggled? Have any of you felt that way? Because I get this from a lot of people. They say, you know what? I feel like, the Bible says I'm supposed to go from what I've been taught. And but I struggle with going. And then there's always various reasons. It's always various reasons. So I did a little research, and going back in history, one of the things I wanted to show you is that church has evolved through so many situations. There, we going down the line. Cause see, I was raised right here, under this denomination. I brought y'all a little preaching tonight. Oh, I know some hands are starting to move right about now. Y'all got your cameras off, but I know I know it's some of this going on. So this is what I call old school. Those were the good old days. Let me tell you, yes. It was a different climate. And I know a lot of you on here can agree, especially those who are familiar with the climate. You know what I mean? Those were the days where church had gone through different evolutions. A lot of people we think that when we go through an evolution in historical times, as far as church is concerned, that's the only time that the church evolved, and that's not true. The church has evolved so many times, and out of this, because I heard my mom and them talk about it so much, all of this came out of the revival at Azusa. Everybody knows about the Azusa. Everybody knows about that revival, but it's a preach Patterson. Yeah, but nobody like G.E. When G.E. died, Kyle called me boo-hoo crying. I mean, I thought something was wrong with him. I thought he had heard someone, like somebody called him and told him that, we had a loss in our family or something. Kyle was calling me crying like that because G.E. Patterson died. Like Kyle, he was sick. That's how much he loved G.E. Patterson. So there's a big difference in now. Now, when I look at, we keep going and we evolve. Of course, everybody loves Jakes. To tell you about. Don't pay no attention to the clock on the wall. For the God I serve, you get the same face. He will give you extra time. The devil thought your day was over, but the devil is a liar. The Lord sent me in. Tell you this. Uh-oh. So some people are saying it ain't over. It ain't over. It ain't over. Now, this is what I call what brought us here. And when I mean here, I mean to this day and age, because we talked about Azusa, and there were many. I mean, of course, we can go back in history and see all of the times where church evolved, where it went to something different. There was a time where there were no praise and worship teams. There was a time where, there was no tape ministry. There was a time when we didn't see churches like this, except in certain, Catholic gatherings and stuff like that. So what brought us to this point from what I believe were different moves through churches and how they evolved through history, being there were two evolving situations that I know of in my lifetime. One was Azusa, the other was Full Gospel. Out of Full Gospel, that was the one that gave Baptists the right to choose, from Paul S. Morton, that just took the Baptist church and everybody was like, oh, Baptist church, and now started to embrace the Holy Spirit. And they're actually shouting and doing everything else in the Baptist church when there was a time it was totally unheard of, and it caused a divide. So now, that's what brought us to where we are now. And now church is going in a whole other place because we have stuff like this.
He finishes the song. And shouting him down. The teacher runs up and he said, y'all need to understand something. I know the song, but that kid knows the shepherd. Tonight you need to hear it. It's not good enough to just sing the songs. It's not good enough to just know about the shepherd. You need Jesus. You got to know about his grace. It's better than you think it is. You got to know about his love. There's more than you think there is. This is our God. somebody. If you believe it, front to the back, left to the right. Let's sing it out tonight. Spirit lead.
Now, this is what I call new school high tech. So we've gone from, our old school to where there was a groundbreaking move where things just like evolved and became extremely impactful. And then now we've gone to the new school high tech. So as the world has evolved, church has evolved, and everything it's just a different climate. But in this climate, as much as you see, as full as you see that place, there's still so many who don't go. They don't like to go. They don't want to go, and they struggle. They just struggle with the whole process of it because there are so many things that has hindered their growth or hindered them or discouraged them from going. Now, I know that I asked the question, do some of you struggle sometimes? Give me some of the reasons why you think you struggle. What are some of the reasons why you struggle with going? And while you're typing in your reasons, I'm going to share just a tad bit of my story. I'm going to be just a little transparent tonight because I want you to understand why this topic I feel is like just definitely a need. Because personal experiences have taken me there. Personal experiences have allowed me to be able to share. Because as I say, I was one who I slept, and lived right there. But as time progressed, I was so burnt out and so frustrated because when you work in church, that's a whole nother dynamic. Because you work where you worship, and it is very tough to separate the two. It's not an easy thing. Nobody want to share? Are y'all there? Because I can't tell. When I'm on PowerPoint, I can't tell if somebody's there. So y'all have to let me know. If your reasons are various reasons, say various reasons. If you don't want to share your reason, I get that. But if you have a reason why you struggle with going at times, when those times come and you struggle with getting out of bed, tell me what the reasons are. Share it with me. I'm tired. I'm frustrated. Tired of the foolishness. Because there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. But when I felt the need to make the change in my life, I knew I had to do something different. When I felt the need to make the change, I had to decide. I'm like, okay, this is for me. Anita decided. I'm gonna lay low for about a few years. I'm not gonna go anywhere because I'm so tired from being burnt out. I'm so tired from being burnt out. I need a minute to just breathe and just connect back with God. And I know that sounds strange to some of y'all, but when you work and worship in the same place, it becomes such a mixture that it's hard to separate the two. And by that time for me, I was beyond frustrated. Some people type some things in, burnout, politics. I feel we often do church without power, so it's easier not to go. Oh, you better talk, Stacy. Sometimes just being lazy and easy access to service online. Now that's the place that we're going right there, Maryland. So sometimes, it's tough, but this is what we're dealing with. And I'm going to walk through these points and then I'm going to have the discussion, but I want to open up the discussion because I feel that this is something that we all need to talk about. Because one of the things that happens is there's such a change in society these days, like Marilyn just said, technology. First of all, Google answers everything. If you want to know something, you Google it, it's there. If you can, this is what stops people from even picking up a book, a newspaper, a magazine, or reading the Bible. And I'm guilty because technology is my friend. And I go and reach for technology before anything, just about most of the time. So when it comes to certain things, I'm typing it in. The other day I was surfing the Bible for something, I was forgetting where certain books were. I'm like, it's been that long since I really picked it up. That I'm so stuck on my online resources that I fail to really just take the moment and pick up the Bible as much as I used to. And I'm being very honest and being very transparent. I was like I almost needed those little thumbprints down the side because I couldn't find it. The other thing is with online streaming, we have access. Online streaming, it makes it so much easier. And if you're tired or if just don't feel like getting out of bed, you can roll over and you can Saint Mattress it by going to Streaming Faith. If your church streams, you can go right to the website, log on, and you can even chat. The other thing is there are so many social media outlets. There are so many people preaching on Periscope. Periscope has become a whole nother church. Periscope is like a church conference. You can go from preacher to preacher, from prayer to prayer. And, I have actually run across some very good people on Periscope. I don't knock any of the social media situation because this is what we do. This is what we started on Facebook Live and Instagram Live. So I don't knock it at all. But technology has gotten us to the point that, most of the time we just don't go. So that's one of the things. Another thing is the political climate has discouraged so many people because we deal with politics from the pulpit. There's such a mixture nowadays, church and state. It's like some people that I've admired for years, that I've been friends with for years, have our differences have wedged such a gap between us because I'm one that I'm very, very, very reluctant to post my frustrations on social media. However, in this political climate, I have a couple of times. I don't do it often. I don't. But when I get so frustrated with just the morality and just the foolishness, it's some of it is just so it just pulls me there. It pulls me there. But I try not to go there. And I guess from serving in ministry for so long, I've tried not to, because technically you really shouldn't be taking politics in. Because that's a place where we should, regardless of our differences, regardless of the differences in what we believe as far as society is concerned, we have a common ground. But in most cases, in a lot of evangelical situations, they have blended those two things together. And, will in some cases make you feel like you're not saved if you don't vote the way they vote. So the political climate has caused such a discouragement as far as church is concerned that, people feel like if I want to know what's going on, I just turn into Twitter. And that's basically what's happened. Other thing is there's such a negative shield because at this point in time, when it comes to church, there's no code of ethics. Now, I think we've gone from one extreme to the next on this. There is a time in life where if you walked in the door in a pair of pants, it didn't have to be jeans, because I grew up in a church where you couldn't wear, you had to wear dresses all the time. And it wasn't even about, your body shape. It was about that's just what they believed. And my mom never forced that on us. She didn't. I don't know if she did it with my siblings who were older than me. Karen can answer that question. But I know when I grew up, I wore whatever, my mama bought me, took me to the store, bought me jeans or whatever. But I knew other families who did not allow their kids to wear pants. And we, but the thing is, okay, that was kind of like bondage. But we grew from certain codes of ethics where people had a certain level of respect. They used to say, oh, don't say that on the church ground. People cuss all up in the church now. They don't even care. Oh, don't do this, don't do that. There was a certain code of ethics when it came to the mothers of the church, respecting the pastors. But the code of ethics have gone out the window. And I think not just because of the fact that we have that there's just so much, and it is a lot. There's a lot going on. You if you're tuned in, you admire a pastor today, tomorrow you find out he had a mistress for 5 years. So there's a lot going on, but I think the issue is it probably wasn't that it wasn't going on back in the day before internet. It's just that we have access to it. The access to information is so quick. It takes 1 second to upload a video onto Instagram or to YouTube or wherever. So the code of ethics are just out the window because people just don't respect. So there's such a negative shield that's over the church now. And then the other thing is, because of the immorality, they don't see a difference in how Christians conduct themselves versus people who are not Christians. So for that reason, they're quick to say, oh, but the church, but you're supposed to be so saved. Well, and then of course we have oh, he's only human, or she's only human. And yes, we are human and we are flawed. But just as we expect our kids to conduct themselves a certain way when they leave your house, don't you think God expects you to conduct yourself a certain way when you leave his? It's something about it that we don't feel that we should have, sometimes, I'll put it this way, sometimes people don't feel that they should be called on their stuff, not that somebody's got a heaven or hell to put you in, but that you feel like you should be above that because you're human. Or it should just be understood because, he is a man. Yes, he is a man, but there's a difference between right and wrong. So there's such a negative shield. So all of these changes, and then nowadays there's so much new age stuff that's out that masks itself as God. And then we have people who are tapping into other faith options and who are getting very, very close to the thin line. So, and because it feels good, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to feel good. It's not going to answer questions for you. It's not going to ease your mind and clear your head and all of that stuff. Those things are happening for people who seek that, but they're seeking those alternative options because of all of the other stuff that's happening. So society has driven it to a point that people just struggle. They just struggle. Am I in the ballpark? I wish I had somebody to talk to. I need somebody's mic up because Annette is having the technical problems, and I need somebody to open their mic. Brenda, you were my guest last week. I don't know if you're still eating or not, but if you could open your mic and just have some conversation with me, okay? Because I feel like I'm not talking to anybody, and I know that I don't know what's going on with her. I'm gonna have to help her out with her technical issues. Yeah. But do you understand what I'm saying, though? It's like there's such a negative shield.
Oh, yeah, I agree. If you're considered any opinion that you have, it will be thrown back at you as you are being contrary to the will of God.
That is so true.
And so when that happens, I equate it to this. It's like many, many decades ago when a woman would call the police because she was raped.
Mm-hmm.
And when it goes to trial, she's attacked. Well, what were you wearing? Well, why did you have that on? And so she backs away. So women stop reporting it because it was looked at as she asked for it. And so when you're dealing in church and you have an observation of certain things, because it happened to me, I was a trustee at the time at my church. And so I just had an opinion when it came to our meetings and what our approach was and our focus. And it wasn't to put it down, but it's like we should always be seeking to be better. We have that lovely soundbite, spirit of excellence, but do we fully understand the definition? That means you're open to areas to see it's not all good all the time, and we need to do better. But you back away, and then you back away, and then each Sunday becomes easier not to be there.
That is so. I appreciate you for coming on and just to have a voice. I feel like I have a body in the room with the technical issues. And I know you don't have these notes, but you've lived and you have served for many, many, many years, and you understand what this is all about. And you and I have had this on a personal level. We've had these conversations.
Yes.
So it's really it's really touchy, but changes in society has taken us there. And we're supposed to be, and this is supposed to be Annette, and I can't do her points because I don't know them. We each do our own research and have our own stuff that we are going to talk about. But because we're supposed to be the salt of the earth. So when we hear that scripture that the church is the salt of the earth, and we've heard 1,000,001 sermons. I don't have to go down that road with everybody that's on here because you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the thing is, we start to lose it when salt loses its savor. it's no good. It's just white crystal. But anything that you sprinkle salt on, it immediately changes it. Salt is so powerful that it will stop something from growing in the ground. I totally have forgotten about that, and it heard many scriptures and preachers preaching sermons about, salting the earth, salting the ground, and blah blah blah. I have, you know how in your backyard, well, I have like bricks, and weeds sometimes grow up in between them. And around the pool in this one house, we would have these weeds that were just so stubborn that they would, it's like, and I would just spray and spray and spray and spray. And one day my mama said, boil you some water and get some vinegar and pour a lot of salt in there, like a whole box, and pour it down there. I'm like, salt, that's right. It will kill it so nothing else will grow there. And that's exactly what it does. And I did it, and I didn't have that problem anymore. So I'm like, man, that's crazy. That salt will actually do that. I'm gonna try. Let me see. I think I have to open the next mic. Or can you open your mic in there? I don't even know if she's still there.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just a little in and out.
Oh man, I'm having internet problems, Nita. I don't know what's going on. But I'll try to do what I can. So please pass the salt. Salt is good according to Luke 14:34, NIV version. Salt is good, but if it loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? The word salt actually means prudence. It's the ability to go and discern by skill and wisdom. We want to talk about season
And that
to taste. Huh?
we're not getting you, honey.
Oh boy. Okay.
We're not getting you at all. We're gonna have to blog her segment. We're gonna have to blog her segment and send it out because it is totally not allowing us to hear you. So we're just gonna have to. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go through those points. I'm just gonna show what the points are that you have. Her first point is season to taste. Her second point was, is anyone thirsty? And I was so looking forward to hearing this tonight. Her third point is inexpensive but valuable. And her last point was watch your salt intake. So I don't even know remotely where you were going with this and that. And I wish I could know. I wish I at least probably had your notes or something. I probably could have shared it for you, but we didn't anticipate the technical difficulty. And we really do apologize because we don't know what happened. But whatever the problem is, we're gonna try and make sure it's fixed before we do another segment. But just looking at this from the perspective, I know that you wanted to deal with the potency. And a lot of times when we have, a whole lot, like a real salty meal, then, it makes you thirsty. It makes you thirsty. And the other thing, now I know this about salt, and I talked about this before. I think we talked about this before, and that salt is one of the cheapest things you can buy off the shelf. But it's so valuable because you can use it for so many things. It has so many uses for wounds and for sterilization. I even tell my students to gargle with it. But it can hurt you if you get too much of it. Now, I don't know where you're going with that, so I'm just going to bypass this one, and I'm going to go on to the one that we know that everybody can play a part in this. Amen, Bren? This one right here?
Yeah.
This gets down to the nitty-gritty. Because we're supposed to be one thing. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. We're supposed to be the examples and all of that. But this is what really happens to a lot of people. A lot of people deal with this just like this because it can be a member-to-member thing.
Okay.
I've heard people say, I don't go anymore because there was a lady that sat next to me that did this. Or because the usher was rude to me. Or because Sister so-and-so said something about my skirt. some of the pettiest, most foolish things can really turn a person away.
Yes. Or here's one that was told to me growing up. No, you can't be saved. You wearing makeup. Yeah.
That's the bondage. Now that's
Yeah.
bondage right there.
That. Yeah.
Because you know what, but you know, and I'm going there, Brad. Because that's like my third one. Because I know, like, now member to member telling you, oh, you know what? And I had it happen to me before. This one lady had me hemmed up for about like an hour one day because I had on eyeshadow, and she went on and on and on, and she was like flipping through her Bible, and I'm not gonna say her name. She's passed on now, and my sister Carrie know her too. She was flipping through her Bible, and she was showing me all the scriptures about harlots and painting your face and all this stuff. And I'm just sitting there looking like,
wow.
Huh?
Can you hear me now?
Vaguely. You're still going now, and then.
I believe it.
So this lady kept talking to me about my makeup and about my lipstick and about my blush, and I was like, but you know, and if I remember correctly, you know, and I couldn't, you know, back then you better not say something to somebody or correct them.
Right.
I remember thinking to myself, but if I'm looking at this correctly, you've been in the church since long before I was even old enough to sing in the choir, the same church, and you got a 5-year-old kid, but you're not married. But I'm going to hell because I have on blood.
Right. Right.
So those are things. Those are some of the things. It's like foolish member to member interaction, and sometimes it can discourage other people, and it causes a person to come here. You have personal disappointment. You look at somebody as though they're supposed to be perfect, and when you find out they aren't, especially for people who don't get it, who are new Christians, they don't get it. They don't know any better. But when they see you outside of yourself, they become personally disappointed.
Because for some that are young in this or have put certain people on a pedestal, you become the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And so when certain things you have a certain expectation of that person, and
Mm-hmm.
you learn of something that is totally against what you goes against your preconceived notion, it's hurtful and it's disappointing, because it's like, if that is the situation with that person, I thought a lot of them, then who else is like that? So why am I here?
Somebody's TV is in the background, they say. I don't know whose TV is in the background. Is that your TV, Brad? Your mom's watching? Yeah, that's what it is. You can't hear? I'm sorry, y'all. I think that's Brenda's mother's TV.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that's better. She didn't turn it off, did she?
No.
Oh, okay, so you just had to put your headphones on. Okay, so, but that's true. That is so true, Brand. And the thing is, people become hurt. People get frustrated. They get tired of it. And then they put people on a pedestal, and then they don't know what to do when they see something different. And then there's, you know, a lot of times nobody really explains it to them, because sometimes we do walk around as though we're on pedestals. We walk around as though we have no fault. And when people see or experience something that shows them different, you know better than me, you know, a lot of times they become discouraged and they become hurt. That's church hurt. Church hurt comes in many different forms. Guilty of that as a young Christian, of a Stacy, yeah, as a young Christian. And somebody else said, oh, that was somebody who. But yeah, so now what happens too, now this is an area where I know everybody, I'm not talking about nobody's pastor, but Man, I keep turning this thing off for some reason. I'm not talking about anybody's pastor, but this happens a lot. Pulpit lashings.
Yes, it does.
That is not the place. Somebody
Yes.
said some people don't recover from church. That's true, in that some people don't even recover, and especially when it comes to the pulpit lashing. And I have written about this in my book, and I'm not afraid to tell it, because I proclaim, Stacy, that I will boldly and freely speak my truth. Right? That's my earth angel. She knows exactly what I'm talking about. I will boldly and freely speak my truth. So, speaking my truth says I have been right there, almost like Jesus and the two thieves. It's just like somebody just put up a whole nother cross and put me on it.
Yeah.
Pulpit lashings don't feel good. When somebody is rebuking you from the pulpit, because what happens is people, I'm not talking about your pastor. My pastor don't do it. My church don't do it. God bless you. That's my disclaimer. But in a lot of cases, I have been a victim of it. And I love God with all my heart and mind. And I'm not telling nobody not to go. I have been a victim of the pulpit lashing. And I've struggled with that, because is that God?
No, it's not. And I've struggled with that early on. And I was called Satan from the pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't get me in nobody's church for 2 whole years. I wasn't going nowhere.
That was me. Valerie said I left church after 17 years because I was tired of being chastised from the pulpit. Stacy said that's not God. LaShavia said I've experienced it as well. It is a hard place, because here's the thing, and this is one thing that I had to learn. I had to learn this the hard way. And when I say the hard way, it took me a couple of times to get this. You cannot fight the man or woman of God with your mouth and try and beat them at their game. That is not what you are to do.
Right.
Because God got them. Now, I didn't try to fight anybody, but there was one case where I tried to go around and explain my side of the story. And the more I tried to explain my side of the story, the deeper that thing got. It just would not go away. It was like a bad rash.
Yeah, it goes from a raisin to a watermelon. The more you explain, the more you are the disgruntled one.
People add to the story.
Yes.
They're like, ooh, and she was saying, ooh, and, something wrong with her. And because at the end of the day, I don't care what he or she does. In most cases, those people are still going to stand behind their pastor, regardless. And I don't discourage anybody from doing that. No, I don't. But I can deal with Anita. And Anita had to learn how to fight. The Bible says the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty to the pulling down of strongholds. I had to look at that thing from a warfare perspective, because obviously there was something. Either God was trying to get me out of there, or he was trying to teach me a lesson or something. Or maybe the lesson is for the other person. But that's not God. You're right, Stacey. That is not God. Somebody has said that using words like poison, witness firsthand. Exactly. You witnessed it. And that was at me. I was labeled as poison. I was poisoned. And the poison was spreading to the other people that I encountered. See, that's when the devil wants to stop your anointing. He wants to stop everything that you have to do. And the thing is, you being a part of a local ecclesia has, that's you serving and helping and communing with other people. But your relationship with God is between you and him. Your work and your purpose is between you and him.
Exactly.
The church you attend is not your purpose unless you are called to that purpose, unless you're a first lady or something, or if your purpose is tied to that. But that's not your purpose. You have your individual purpose. I had to learn not to fight. I used to try to go and explain myself, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. It just seemed like it wouldn't let up.
Yeah.
And then when I learned to keep my mouth closed and pray and cry on somebody else's carpet, and I kept praying and I kept oh wow, you're trained. I'm gonna mute you.
I'm muting.
Okay, to the train passed. But I kept praying and I kept praying and I kept praying. And I kept believing and I kept believing. And eventually I was able to come out of that. And then I came out smelling like roses. Because why? Because I had to realize God was dealing with that person. And I can't sit around here and wait to see the person fall or crumble. Because guess what? They may never in your eyes. But trust me, you don't know their inner struggles. You don't know the potential that they could have reached. Because they could have been a person who was supposed to be a TD Jakes and they'll never go past that city. Why? Because they're out of the will of God. And when the Bible says, touch not mine anointed and do my prophet no harm, that is not just pertaining to the person who's standing behind the pulpit. That's pertaining to the people who are in the pews as well.
Anita, that statement right there that speaks volumes, because unfortunately for so many decades, we relegate the power of God to the pulpit. He is not just there. He does not just pour his anointing on that person there. We all that read the word and have experienced with God, how is it that the church will teach about having a relationship with God, but you want to be my side piece, but you want me to get rid of my relationship? It does not work that way.
Say that.
Ministry is not about going to church. It's about kingdom building. I go to church to fellowship, to build myself, and if I'm to be a blessing for others. But it is about out here. I can shikamoshai in those four walls, but if I'm not doing anything after that door, it means nothing.
Exactly.
So then when you get, well, you're not coming to church. What's going on? Nothing going on. I'm tired.
Exactly.
I need to rest. There are clothes that need to be washed. Let's be practical. There are clothes that need to be washed. Sometimes I just need to walk on the beach and be me and God just chilling, because my worship does not start when I walk through those doors.
It does not. It starts when you open your eyes.
Yes.
You open your eyes and God gave you another day. You start your worship. That's your call to worship. Your call to worship is the fact that you woke up another day and your feet can hit the floor. Your praise and worship is that you woke up with the breath in your body and the use of the activity of your limbs, and that you have a sound mind, a roof over your head, and food to eat. That's your worship. You are worshiping right there. Somebody said a lot of times there's nothing going on in the church.
Stacey, you're right.
You're right, Stacey. You're right. And you know what? A lot of times the thing is, I have to get myself, I can't be a benefit to anyone else if I'm falling apart. And I know people who go to every single thing and try and give in every single offering. And then your bills are hurting. Your bills are hurting. Your credit cards are overdue. There's some things you can't do, and you should not feel less than because you can't. And the Bible didn't say you were going to go to hell if you couldn't give in that offering. You can't.
Right. We fall into church. We feel guilty if we miss a service. We feel guilty if we didn't give when this preacher showed up, or this campaign's going on, that campaign. And other members that perpetuate that make you feel that way. And then the other thing coming from the pulpit, from that pastor, it comes from leadership. We're doing this, and I don't trust God and just give. Don't get in my relationship with God. That has to do with me and him.
Let me tell you something. I remember when we first, and this is funny though, because y'all know, of course, everybody who know I went to New Birth and I served under Bishop Curry for 10 years. When I first got there, and I was supposed to be special assistant to the senior pastor in the area of music, and I became something I didn't want to do, because I told him when I came there I don't want to be a minister of music again, and I ended up there anyway. That's what happened when you work for your friends. But when I was there and I started developing the music ministry to what it needed to be, and I said to him, I remember having this conversation, the ministry is way too big for the people that you have governing certain areas. You need more praise team members, so I need to have an audition, because you can't have just these people, because if 2 or 3 of them don't show up, then what are you going to do? You need multiple, and then you can rotate them so that one set doesn't get burnt out. The other thing is you need extra musicians. You need extra musicians because there's a whole lot here that goes on. So if you have two keyboard players and two drummers and two bass players, you got a full set no matter what. So if somebody gets sick, you don't have a problem, and then you need to pay them for the time that they're going to be at your beck and call. So there were certain things I had to sit down and have this conversation with him. You don't know how he is. And so me and him went at it for about 2 or 3 hours, and he finally just gave in because he knew he wasn't going to win the fight. But my point to him was this: you have to staff it properly so that you have enough, because people do get tired, and you can't run the same person over and over and over and over again, because not only does it burn a person out, but it also gives a person a false sense of their status, that you know, the show ain't gonna go on if I ain't in. So it can create a monster who believes that, you know, the sun rises and sets on them. And the devil is a liar. And so I had to make sure that I put those things in place. But that was me making sure, and I'm looking at it from a perspective of a person who's been there, who's been burnt out, who's been hurt, who's dealt with the pulpit lashings because I didn't come to church that Sunday, who dealt with the pulpit lashings because I skipped the service for my birthday. Like what? I can't have my birthday? I can't go out to dinner. I can't go out to lunch with my friends on my birthday. I came to the early service. I'll never forget that. I came to the early service, but for lunch, I wanted to go and have brunch. But I got fussed at because I had my legs crossed under the table having brunch.
Oh, that was funny.
That was funny. And I was like, that wasn't me because I can't cross my legs. I haven't crossed my legs in years. I might be after I finish losing weight, I might be able to cross my legs again. Oh, Stacey said, somebody said good teaching, wisdom, and strategy. So this is what happens, and this is one of the main areas where we deal with people who have been in church all their life, like Valerie, and after 17 years stopped going because you get tired of being chastised from the pulpit about what you're wearing, who you hang around, what you're doing, what your life is unstable, blah, blah, blah. It's one thing after another, and people.
Wow. Anita, we can't hear you. Yeah, you're muted for whatever reason.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay, so we have those things. People get frustrated because they've been lashed so much and chastised so much. Like Valerie said, chastised because of what you're wearing, who you're hanging around, what you're doing, you know, how many boyfriends you had, and you have a lipstick. Oh, she went to parties. Her mama let her go out. You know, all kinds of stuff. So there's so many things that come at us, and then, you know, and of course, everybody puts those preachers in the pulpit on the pedestal, and I applaud the ones who tell you, don't put me on no pedestal. I applaud pastors who are transparent and say my life is jacked up. Because you know what? Because it is. Because we all are wrapped and clothed in flesh. And we struggle. We do. But when you're using your status to hurt somebody, that is what causes so many people to stay away. And most of the people that I've talked to, either it's been done to them, or they get tired of seeing it being done to somebody else. And somebody can call you a demon or the devil. And I know a lot of you have been there. I've been called Absalom. Somebody said something. Oh, that's Zenobia. She said, I've been enjoying this teaching. I'm sure. Been called Absalom, been called a demon, been called poison. But and then they say it's an abuse of power. And it is. It's an abuse of power because the powerful position is there and you can't fight it, because no matter what, people are still going to follow. You can talk all you want to and tell your truth. You can say their name and call their name, call them out, do a blog. You can do all you want to do. But at the end of the day, the one thing you can't dispute is the reason that God called the person. He calls people with flaws. He calls the foolish things of this world to confound the wise. And I'm one who will tell you, and I've said this, I've preached it many a times. Every time I got up, I would preface it by saying, I don't know why God called me. He has a sense of humor. I don't know why I got in this line, why I was a chosen one for this here. He has a sense of humor because I'm one jacked up individual. I'm not your typical girl with the rhinestone lapel on my dress and with the lap scarf attached to the handkerchief. Remember they used to do that? They have the lap scarf and the handkerchief. And God said, oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not, of course, now I could preach the average brother under a pew. Don't get it twisted. I can out-hoop them. I can out-exegete. I can out-preach in 3 points and inform them all day long. But I'm not that girl who is typical because I'm very different. I work in the music industry. I do something that just defies all of the logic of people in church. And because I work outside, I knew and I had to come to the point where my calling was. And I'm going to get to that on the last slide, but I wanted to get to this church hurt thing because a lot of things, what I do, Bryn, has caused me a lot of hurt.
Of course. Of course it has.
Sing the devil's music.
Oh, yeah.
How can you do that and then still say that you're saved? I remember somebody said that to me. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean you working in the studio with Lil Wayne? What do you mean you're working in the studio with Lil Wayne? Why are you working with him? I mean, how can you do that? I don't understand how you can do that and still be saved. I'm like, just like that?
Yeah, it comes to the point. Anita, is why do you think that being saved creates an exclusive country club? That we're only allowing so many. And who are we to even say who that we allow? It's not our call. We're not qualified. We never were. Mm-hmm. But we create this exclusivity. But then the other part of it is you got folks saying they saved, but like they say, they're sitting there looking like they sucked on lemons, or they might have some hemorrhoids problems, so they need a little preparation age. But church hurt is real. It continues to go on. And unfortunately, when leadership does it, then those that are next to leadership feel that they can do it. So they exercise that because they feel that the card has been passed on to them to do it. So the hurt just begins to perpetuate and perpetuate. Mm-hmm. And so that's why then you think about the various cults that exist mm-hmm. and how they grow. It's because church hurt makes you look, like I said last week, you go where it feels good. And that's what happens. So you find yourself somewhere where someone's paying you attention. They're appreciating you. And, that simple little line, I see you.
And that's what we were talking about in the first thing. We talked about changes in society. Changes in society has offered people other faith options. And they feel good. They go there and say, like, oh, I'm so free. I just meditated. My mind is free. Mother Earth, the universe. And they feel good. They don't feel pressured. They don't feel singled out. They don't feel, and those are things that we do because we have made, like you said, like church has become like a country club. We've made it like this place that is elitist. And that's not what it's supposed to be because the real work is outside the walls. The real work is going out and compelling men to come to church, to come to Christ. Right. Not to come to the service and be there at 7 a.m., 11 a.m., and 7 p.m. and be there at Bible study and all of the Bible studies and all of the conferences and and everything every day, all day, every day, camped out. That is not what the Bible says to do.
Nowhere.
And if they want to do that, that's their choice. But our job mainly is to go and make disciples. And that's where what we've gotten away from because we want the disciples to come in and we can invite them to become a disciple. But are we really going in and making disciples?
No, we're going in and we have a list of do's and don'ts. When mostly coming up in church, I was just told the don'ts. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why would anybody want to be part of something that has so many restrictions? But when I began to learn and understand what a relationship with God is, that's freedom. My commitment to Him gives me freedom. Because I get to explore who I am, who He's called me to be. But it is because with my mama, when they were coming to church, they couldn't straighten their hair. And Lord knows you weren't going to be doing no perm. And then don't be wearing no earbobs. So all of that. And then they want them thick, opaque beige stockings. All of that. So.
I haven't bought a pair of stockings in years.
Yeah, okay.
Zenobia said, insecure and hurt people will abuse and hurt people. And that's true.
Yes.
And Stacy said, these are individuals who are spiritually immature and don't understand the Spirit of God. God needs salt in every area of life. God works in us outside the four walls. And she's like, I can't with these man-made rules. And it's the truth. It's like, you know, it has evolved. Like I took us through just a few because I was looking for everything. I was having me fun last night looking at some of these videos. I even found a 14-year-old girl lying in the hymn, a charge seat I have. I sent it to Annette. I was like, that girl lied that hymn better than any deacon I've heard it. Yes. But there are so many things that we have made that become what it's supposed to be like when you're in church, and that's not the truth. People are going to grow in grace, and they're going to learn, and they learn by being instructed through love, not by you telling them, you know, you ain't got no business wearing that short skirt. Now, people grow and they learn. At some point, they're going to learn. They're going to grow up and they're going to do better. But some people, you know, like me and Annette was having this discussion last night, and we know there are some people who do the junk on purpose. They do. It's because they have not evolved. But it's not just about church. It's about life in general. Number one, and we said this, when you walk away from the mirror, you know exactly why you put on what you put on. You're going to turn to the side. You want to make sure it hugs in all the right places. You want to make sure that it accentuates you in the best way possible. Why? Because you want to look good. So when you walk out the door, and if it looks like if you bend over to pick up a pencil, it's going to snip, you have no business wearing that anywhere, not to your job, not to church, not even to the grocery store. There's a difference between proper and improper. And there are some people who just don't get that. But what happens sometimes in the church is that we can become so dogmatic to people about what's proper and what's improper. And when you ain't got no business and you shouldn't, that child. And then we'll talk about them. And then they don't want to, and they feel indifferent, and then they stop coming because they're being last from member to member and last from the pulpit and everywhere else. But then there are some people who just do it on purpose for the attention. So we just pray for them. But at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we're dealing with people with compassion.
Right.
So, because what happens is with all of that happening, we feel let down.
Yes.
This church hurt will have you depressed. And you start questioning everything. You question your faith. You question your relationship. You question everything that you've ever learned. And I know people right now who I met them in church. And they were churched before I met them for years. I'm talking 20 years, 30 years. And because of a bad experience with something personally or spiritually or something in church, and I know one person's particular struggle that I can't share, she had a very hard struggle with, sometimes, church members will give you bad advice. And there's sometimes church leaders will give you bad advice. But that's not God. And if you follow the advice of somebody and it does not end well for you, you've got to separate that from God. Because everybody who approaches you with a word ain't bringing you a word. And this is what happened to a particular person that I know. And for that reason, her statement to me is, now I'm not religious anymore. And then she went to cussing, and I've never heard her cuss in my life. Not to say that I make her saved or unsaved, but I was like, wow, she just like flat don't believe anymore. She has gone to a whole other faith option because of being hurt and let down by some bad information. And this is what happens a lot. And so we have compiling reasons as to why people just don't go and why they struggle. Because I've been there. I have struggled. I struggled for years and years and years and years. And when I found my opening, I was like, okay, I can actually do this, because I had to learn what was actually happening. Because we had to deal with the fact, first of all, it's the world we live in right now. There is a whole lot of stuff going on. Nobody's perfect. We're struggling. We are the minority, because there's a whole lot of people who look at us like, what? You go to church? I don't, I believe in a higher power, but I don't believe in organized religion. I get a lot of that because we have to understand that what is happening now is prophecy being revealed. This is stuff that we heard about. We heard our moms talk about it, our grandmothers talk about it. In the last days, blah, blah, blah. We know that, there's certain things that start to happen. But this is prophecy being revealed. This is the time that we live in right now. So one of the things that I had to happen with Anita, and this is where I can share my personal experience with this, I had to get to the point that I had to self-examine. I took some years, yes. I took some years after being burnt out, hurt, crushed, lashed, used, spit out, you name it. I felt all of that and then some. And not just once in my life, about 3 times in my life, as far as being a member and working in and dealing with ministry. It was very, very tough for me. But I had to self-examine and realize, Anita, deal with your part. And you pray inwardly. Where did you make yourself so available for this? How did you make yourself available? How did this door even open for somebody to get that close to hurt you like that? Because a lot of times we'll overextend ourselves, and then when something don't happen the way it's supposed to, and we get them lashings, I know we've been there.
Yes.
You mess around and the choir sound bad. You mess around and the conference don't go well, or something that you're in charge of is not functioning properly, or somebody complains about something in the ministry that you're over, then you're going to get those lashes and you start to feel hurt and crushed and all of this stuff, because a lot of times we overextend, number one. Number two, we really take everything that we're doing as though that is the lifeline. So that when we actually get some type of criticism or something, it destroys us because we have allowed that thing to attach to our heart. It became a soul tie.
That's the perfect word for it. Yeah.
It's a soul tie. It's not supposed to affect you that way. It shouldn't affect you that bad. And then say, yes, you give so much and still get the lashing. Often we were at the church more than the pastor. That's true. I know I was.
Yes.
I know I was. And shoot. How many times we get extend. And we spend more time there, and we work more on the building up of the service. We work more on the building up of the conference, but we still get the lashings. We still get the lashings as though everything that we did was not acceptable. And therefore, that self-examination, it puts you in check. It's like, well, why did you do so much? Well, why did you do this? And why did you do that? I'm like, you know what? I have to really watch how I handle myself. I have to really make sure that I'm putting in the time. And then when that situation is over, it's okay to say, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't lead this ministry anymore. I can't lead worship this season. It's okay to say that. It's okay to walk away from something, because what you have is more important. You have to be mindful of that. Because at the end of the day, we're put here because we have to fight the fight. We have to fight the good fight of faith. Yes, we're fighting the good fight of faith. This is our purpose as far as God is concerned, that we make disciples. But if we can't keep ourselves together, we can't hold it together, what do we have to fight with? How are we going to fight the fight of faith if we so beat up from the lashings that we bandaged up and bruised and coming in on a cane?
Yeah, a broken warrior can't fight.
Oh, you better say that. A broken warrior can't fight. That'll preach right there. A broken warrior can't fight. You showing up to the fight with bandages and crutches. Who you gonna beat up? You ain't gonna beat nobody. I remember one time there was a neighbor. I had a this is so sad. I'm not saying anything against people who are in wheelchairs, but across the street from me when I was young growing up, we had this neighbor who, there's a lot of people moving in and out of this one particular house. It was like a rooming house. And this guy was in a wheelchair. And somehow he was the bully of all of the people who were around him. I don't know if they were on drugs. I think one girl was a prostitute. It was a lot of different things, a lot of different dynamics going on with them, kind of sort of like the house across the street from Ukraine when you first moved there. We used to sit and watch. It was one of those situations.
Okay.
So the guy in the wheelchair, I remember him saying, and I'm going to clean it up, but he was fussing at somebody and rolling, I'm going to kick you. And and my crazy husband at the time said, I want to see you do it. You in a wheelchair, what you going to kick? You ain't kicking nothing. You might roll over me, you might roll up on me, but you're not kicking a thing. And that's what the wounded warrior showing up looks like. You showing up battered and bruised. You can't fight the fight that way. You can't lead. You can't tell someone, oh, come in here. It's great on this side. And they're looking at you and you beat up. Mm-mm. If coming over there gonna have me like you, I don't want it. Or come invest your money in my bank and your car getting repossessed. Or come invest in this, but I'm telling you, this is the answer. No, you on foot. I got a car. I'm not going to invest with you. Something's wrong with that picture. So you're right. A wounded warrior can't fight. And when we look at all of this, though, Brand and Annette and everybody else on here, when we look at all of this that we've talked tonight, if the one thing is you don't leave with nothing else, you got to leave with this. This shows you this is why your purpose is needed. Yeah. This is why you can't afford to wait. I don't care if it's catering, if it's a book, if it's a business. People seeing you progress and live and knowing that you love God, it will give them so much hope. It gives people hope that even though it might be corrupt or foolishness or whatever, you will find a way to get on your knees and pray and ask God to lead you to where you can hear a word and fellowship. And if because some people just cannot survive without that, but you can't survive if you take those old ways into a new situation, because all you're going to do is create another wilderness within yourself. You have got to uproot all of this stuff, all of that hurt and pain, and you got to self-examine and make sure that you're going into a situation with the right mindset. Because if you're looking to go in there and operate the way you were where you were hurt, you're just going to get hurt again.
Exactly. It's like going from a bad relationship to a worse relationship, because nothing keeps changing. You keep it's compounded interest that is not beneficial. Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to. And that self-examination, Anita, like you said, so important. And we have to stop saying yes to everybody and everything.
You better say that. And we do. We say
I was guilty of it.
I was too, Brand. I was so guilty. I would say yes, and Anita can do it. Give it to Anita. She can make it happen. And I had to learn to not make myself that available. Nobody and nothing was worth that for me. I don't care if it's a church, if it's a business, family, or whatever. You have got to stop overextending yourself. And you've got to, because you can't do anything, especially if you have kids. How are you going to be able to take care of your kids if you keep extending yourself to everybody else? How are you going to take care of your kids if you pick them up from school?
God created time. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think we got off a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, it went off. But no, I mean, God is the creator of all, and time is definitely that. But we have to be good stewards of our time. Mm-hmm. When you are a good steward of your time, you will set aside time for yourself. You need quiet time. Mm-hmm. You need me time. Mm-hmm. You need time to work on your vision. Mm-hmm. Every day, with everything that God has put inside of each and every one of us, every day you should succeed at producing something that's connected to that vision. Mm-hmm. And church is fellowship, worship. But everyone on here tonight, you need to understand you're bigger than those four walls. You just go in there for a minute because you can't stay there because you won't fit. I don't care what church you go to. God has things for you to do.
So Novia said there's a powerful anointing in saying no. Yeah. And I really hope you got that one. I want you to practice that, Novia. I want you to get in the mirror, because trust me, me, you, Brad, and that we have all been there. Ida.
Yes.
Let me tell you, She is right when she say that. There's a perfect anointing in saying no. Get in the mirror and say that to yourself. There's a perfect anointing in saying no. You can say no. So nobody say we need to write a book. We should get with Claudette and write one of her. She's into these collective books now. We should get with her and have her to write a collective book on church situations, because it's the truth. Because a lot of people think that they're alone in their frustrations, and they're not. But we don't talk about it much because we've been taught, or we've been programmed. That's a better word. We've been programmed to believe that we're not supposed to talk about it. And what people do, a lot of people take this kind of pain and it starts to affect them physically, mentally. People go to their grave early behind this kind of stuff.
Yes, stress, strokes, heart attacks. Yeah.
Let me tell you, it's like, and we have to stop that. People can, like on here, we're going to talk about it. I don't care. We got some other places we're going, and we're going to talk about it on here. And I told him that, I said, we got to go there. I said, this topic right here going to step on a lot of toes, and it's going to raise a lot of emotions and stuff, but it's going to free a lot of people. Because at the end of the day, that self-examination, dealing with you, dealing with how you made yourself become vulnerable to that and open yourself up to those wound possibilities, and then dealing with the fact that it doesn't take that for you to do what you're supposed to do. You don't have to take it. You have to say, I'm more valuable than that. I'm more valuable than to just take this. And because I believe that, I don't have to. I ain't going to get mad and want to fight you. And I've been there. I wanted to fight a pastor one time. I rolled up on him, and he said he had to think twice about where he was going to run. But it was in love. I was going there. I wasn't going to fight him, though. But it was just funny that, he was one of my brothers in the ministry. But he was like, man, I thought you was coming up here to throw some blows. I'm like, well, you need to fight. I don't want to get in a fight with Nita. But when somebody hurt me, of course, I felt like I could go to him with that. And I could, and it was all good. But there are times that I wanted to fight. There are times that I've been so angry, and there are times I've been so hurt that all I could do is cry. I cried so many tears, a lot of tears behind the pain that I've gone through from all of this stuff. But when I did that, when I took that time, I took about 3 years. I took about 3 years before I went to anybody's church. I chilled. I was so free and peaceful.
But Anita, you have to. You have to step away from it.
I was like, I don't have to go. I don't have to go. I don't have no choir rehearsal. I don't have nothing. I felt so good. Ooh, that thing was, let me tell you, and it got good. I got so used to it that I was like, I think I really should go. If somebody said something to me one day like, what are you going to do about your calling? I don't know. But right now, I ain't doing nothing. I was good. I was in such a good place. I mean, I was working and operating and just having a good time. My life was free. I didn't feel the stress. It was all of that. And then one day I went somewhere where I felt that feeling like, wow, I could do this. I could come here. I just don't want the people to bother me. And that pastor felt me. And he made an announcement to his members, even though not the members from the pulpit, but he spoke to his leaders and said, leave her alone. I know y'all know who she is. She's very popular in the city. I know y'all know she is. You know her gifts. Everybody knows all the stuff the pastor Anita could do, but don't bother her because she's here to get hers. That's not why she's here. So don't y'all be calling her, and they did it anyway. Oh, we want you to come to the children's ministry. Can you do the thing? I'm like, I want to help the pastor music out that was there from time to time. I helped out from time to time, once every blue moon. That was it. And then when my schedule changed with my mom, my work schedule on Sundays changed. And when he asked our Bible study on me, I couldn't go no more, but I go online, and trust me, he see the dollar signs online. He know I'm there. I still get the letters. But that's my, technology has gotten me to that point. Right. But I do, I'm not one to say I don't go to the local activity. I do. But my service is on here. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do right now. And it took me a while to get to the point that I knew where my place was. I've always known that I was under fivefold ministry. I fell under evangelist. But God called some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastor teacher. I know I wouldn't have no members, and I'm nobody's prophet, and I ain't holding nobody together. But you lift up that middle finger, I stir stuff up. I stir it up. And when somebody put the middle finger up, that raises you up, or you get, what? What? That's my job. I'm an evangelist, and I'm gonna stir it up. I'm not gonna put my middle finger up on the screen, but y'all get the point.
Right.
That's the analogy. It stirs things up. So I knew who I was, and I had to come to the point that, you know what, I'm more valuable than that, and I've got to figure this out because I know I have a calling, and I know what I'm supposed to do, and I love God with everything in me, and I'm supposed to work in some capacity, but I've got to figure it out because that I can't do anymore.
Right. And Anita, your time away, and for me, my time away when it happened to me and others. And this relates kind of to what you, Marilyn, and I are doing right now. We detoxing. There has to be a process of detoxification. So there has to be a time away because your mindset has to get rid of the poison, because that's what was spoken to your hearing, which goes into your spirit. So yeah, and it just weighs you down. Mm-hmm. But we have to fight so it doesn't destroy us. Mm-hmm. So,
and I want to, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was done. I was like, I just totally get it.
I want to encourage those of you who are on here today, and I don't know if there anybody who comes on and watches this later, if you're a baby Christian or if you're somebody who don't go to church or somebody who was going and stopped or whatever, I'm going to encourage you to make sure your relationship individually is developed. You have to, the Bible says, to study to show thyself, not the whole group, but thyself approved. And you've got to learn, and when you don't know, you call on the elders. And there are some people who will give you good advice, but you have to, your spirit of discernment has to raise up at some point. There are red flags in everything that we do in our lives. Learn to use your discernment. Listen to your inner self, because in a lot of cases, you know how to take the meat and throw it with the bone, but don't internalize the negativity. Don't allow people to tell you who you are and that you're poison and Absalom and that you're whatever they say, the devil, whatever they call you, a harlot, whatever. I mean, I've heard all kinds of stories that people have said to people in those cases, member to member, pulpit lashings, whatever. So don't internalize somebody else's insecurities, and don't internalize the stuff that you know is not God. God said you are a royal priesthood. You're of a chosen generation. You're royalty. You're not poison. You're God's child. You're not poison. You're a king's kid. You're not poison. So all of that stuff, and it's hard. But that's why the Bible says to guard your heart and mind. You got to guard. You got to exercise that warfare, man. Woo! Weapons of our warfare. You got to exercise it, because it will overtake you if you allow it to. And there's sometimes we fall and sometimes we, but you can get back up. So I'm going to encourage anyone who hears this and sees this, that just because someone spoke over you, spoke your eulogy, my ministerial eulogy was preached, and I went on and preached somewhere else and got bigger and better. But my ministerial eulogy, it was said that I wouldn't grace a pulpit, that I would not preach. The devil is a liar. And God continued and continued and continued. And that's what he'll do in your lives too. I want to open up the mics if anybody want to say something, because I know somebody stirred them. I know this is got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 people on here besides me and Ned. And Ned always talk, but she having technical difficulties. 8 people on here. Somebody got something. I'm stop the recording.